Okay, so today, let's start with a little bit of tachlis, a little bit of housekeeping. So next session, we're going to unfortunately cancel because of high holidays. Need the time to prep and be ready. So that's next class, which is the 14th will be canceled.
And the one after?
And then the one after the 20th, the 21st as well. So the next 2 weeks are going to be canceled with apologies, but for high holidays. And then we'll resume again on the 28th. Okay?
Yes.
And last week there was a life cycle. I couldn't be here, so I apologize for that as well. But I know Rabbi Foster gave a wonderful session, and so thank you for your continued participation and engagement with the Lunch and Learn.
You had a funeral.
It was a funeral, yeah.
That's a life cycle.
That's a life cycle.
Yeah.
That's a
So the
EOS,
14th
EOL cycle.
Yes.
14th and the 20th.
Did I do a wedding is the question.
Sunday.
It was a baby naming on Sunday. Yeah. Right, the scuttle. So today,
Be here 9 months before you have to do baby names.
right, I'm still a baby. I can't name, I'm baby, can't name baby. I don't. Okay, so today we're going to talk about nature. And I may be using some of this for sermons as well. So anything that you contribute to this class in the way of insights might make it into a sermon. So we're going to start with a Midrash that I absolutely love. Although all of them are Midrashim that I absolutely love. And we're going to have a little writing exercise as well. So if you're here in person, you have a pen and you can just use the back of your page at the bottom. If you're joining us on Zoom, if you can open up a Word doc, or if you have a little scrap of paper and a pen nearby, I encourage you to get that ready. But let's go ahead and dive in. Who wants to read? This is from Eruvin. This is from Talmud. Does anybody want to start us off in the English?
I will.
Please, David, great.
Rabbi Yochanan said, even if the Torah had not been given, we would nonetheless have learned modesty from the cat, and that stealing is objectionable from the ant, and forbidden relations from the dove, and proper relations from the rooster, which first appeases the hen, and he then mates with it.
Okay, great. So you'll notice this is a little bit different than the other text that I've been bringing. It's questionable whether this is really a midrash. It may just be a ma'amar, a rabbinic saying in the Talmud, but I consider it a midrash for our purposes. It's a story that, even though it's concise, it really contains a lot that I want to unpack today. So can you give me your best guesses? Some of these may seem a little bit more self-evident, but how are these different traits being taught in nature? Why does, for instance, modesty from the cat? Anybody got a cat experience?
No, but
Sheila?
these are all animals that are close to us. In other words, they're home animals. You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, these aren't, you're right, because the way it's framed, I kind of look at it as, look at how much Torah we can glean from nature. Even if we didn't have Torah, we could learn everything we needed from Torah just by looking around the world around you. But you're making a good point that a lot of these animals seem more domesticated. Maybe we're not going too far, which kind of undercuts that go out into nature and see.
What is
David,
also interesting is what is missing, and that is a dog.
Right.
Right.
The rabbis don't love dogs. This rabbi does, but the ancient rabbis, there's a little bit of
They definitely didn't love dogs.
they didn't
Right.
love dogs, unfortunately. Go ahead, David.
I was going to disagree with Sheila just a little bit and then agree with her the rest of the way, which is, I think they're definitely domestic, but they're less home and more farm.
Right.
And I think that one of the things we talked about in the previous couple of weeks is maybe some insights we have from archaeology and other sources that the rabbis didn't have. Here, the rabbis maybe have an insight we don't have, because most of us used to live with these kind of animals. And my dad used to tell stories about when he was in the old country, they had a cow that they would let out during the day and it would wander about wherever it wandered and would actually know how to wander back home when it was getting dark. And they would get their milk from a cow they actually owned.
Mhm.
And their neighbors too, but we don't have that experience in our urban and suburban environments, so we'll have to take Rabbi Yochanan's word for it.
Right, so some of this is sort of a lost way of life for many of us. Even though these are more domesticated, these are really more farm domesticated animals and not really part of our experience today. So good, we're gleaning from that. But a lot of this will be about how can, hopefully by the end of today, you have something that changes the way you interact with nature. So even if it means just walking from here to the parking lot and looking around in the trees or at a metro park or wherever you experience nature, hopefully you get something today that's going to shift your perspective a little bit. Our perspective. Anybody, I saw a hand, was it Jerry or
Yeah.
Jerry? Yeah.
On the other hand, God had made the animals as well. So presumably these are attributes that God had instilled in the animals.
Say that again, I missed it.
God had made these animals as he had made people, and perhaps God had already instilled these virtues in the animals. And
Oh, good,
The
okay.
animals themselves didn't make it up.
Right.
It's part of what the grand plan is from God.
Right. So Jerry is saying these animals, it's not personality traits that were learned. These are sort of God-given, programmed, so to speak, into the animals. So, but that is what's so moving to me about this piece is that they're imagining, Rabbi Yochanan is imagining, in a world where we didn't receive Torah, could we still have access to its insights? And his answer is yes, in the natural world, right? Because we would learn everything we would need. For instance, modesty from the cat. Does that ring true with people's experiences of cats?
No.
No?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, some yes. An example, why? Yeah.
They give birth away from people. They usually will hide themselves giving birth.
They give birth away from people.
Do their business. They usually cover it up a little.
They cover up their business and do that in a separate place.
So things that are,
They clean themselves.
yeah, things
lot,
that
yeah.
are very privately kind of things that we would say are private matters,
Yeah,
they do away from people.
right. Private matters away from people. They're not very loud, right? Like other animals. Dogs are in your business, very like cats are a little more delicate. And yes,
I just want to say that most of the things that they relate to the animals are not what I would pick.
interesting. Okay, you might pick other things. That's going to be part of the exercise. So I'm actually I'm going to put that on hold because that's what the exercise is going to.
Because cats, for example, a dog will come rush to you.
Yeah,
And even if you're a stranger, he'll bark at you.
right.
But a cat will disappear.
Yes.
And they have to take time to get acquainted.
Oh, good. So cats are a little slower to warm up to you, right? Dogs can either be aggressive or affectionate right off the bat. Cats sort of take their time, a little more modest. Yes, Jerry, and yeah.
But without Torah, would we recognize that modesty
Good.
is a virtue?
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. So I got excited because there's a site. You can keep this actually if you like it. Yeah. So that's going to be a segue into our next text after we do the exercise. But Jerry's also saying something a little different than what I'm thinking. But Jerry was saying, without Torah, would we even know that modesty is a virtue, right? So he's sort of pushing back on Rabbi Yochanan saying, well, we wouldn't have everything we need without Torah, because without Torah, we don't know what's good from bad, right? So we might learn a lot from the natural world, but would we even know what to look for is your question. So I think you need both. I think you need Torah and nature. And I think that one helps unlock the mysteries and the insights of the other. So that's the argument I'm ultimately going to make, is that Torah helps us unlock the majesty and beauty and insights and wisdom of nature.
But we could also look at the animals and learn all the wrong things from them.
That's true. Monkeys throwing their feces at people, right? There are plenty of examples for it. Yeah.
The one I'm thinking about, when I was thinking about is Canadian geese
Sure.
who poop everywhere.
Yeah.
But
Right.
and they're monogamous.
Oh, good. Okay. So that was one of the reasons. So we talked a lot about the cat. We haven't talked about the other. So
I'm guessing from what it says here that maybe the rooster is too.
well, actually the one before. So in the rabbi's mind, doves are monogamous. So when they say that we would learn about forbidden relations from the dove, and of course, Gilui Ariot, forbidden relationships, is a big section of in Leviticus and Vayikra and Torah. So we're saying basically we wouldn't need that because we have the dove, right? We wouldn't need Vayikra because we have the dove who's monogamous. So we would learn monogamy from the dove.
But we don't learn monogamy from the Torah.
Oh, you're saying that the Torah is not necessarily monogamous because traditionally multiple spouses, right? But Rabbeinu Tam comes along and makes a takana, a rabbinic fix, so to speak, that we should be monogamous. And of course, he's not saying that willy-nilly. He's saying that that's actually what Torah wants, right? As an evolving document that we should get there. So arguably, you could say monogamy is the ultimate goal of Torah.
I don't think
You
it's
object.
at all.
Yes.
I have several points, but one is,
Careful, you're sounding angry.
I am sorry. I don't want to sound angry, but one question is the word for dove. My wife and I have discussed this a lot because she used to keep racing pigeons, and she says doves are stupid, and they really are. When the Bible talks about intelligent birds, they really mean pigeons. And then I'm not a Hebrew scholar, I don't know, but I've asked, and I'm told the word that's used for dove also means pigeon. So you're a Hebrew scholar.
So in Gemara and Talmud, there's a category, mafriche yonim, people who race pigeons. And yonim, Yona is used for pigeon. It's also used in this case here for dove. Yona, when Noah sends a dove out after the flood to that comes back with the olive branch that there's land, the water has subsided. Yona is the same word here. So I think in this
also,
case,
as he has told me, in the pigeon loft, it's really like Peyton Place. If a man is missing, everybody tries to mate with his wife.
Something else.
that's fair. I'll be perfectly candid with you. I can't speak to the animal kingdom with expertise about what happens here, but I will take whether or not Rabbi Yochanan is correct here. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that it's possible that in his experience or at that time, doves were understood to be monogamous creatures. I think whether or not we debate that point, the larger point stands that we're learning about holy relationships through nature, which again, doesn't apply to every animal, but I think there's a certain poetry to this claim, if you're willing to accept, that there is so much we can learn, so much Torah we could learn in nature. So stealing objectionable from the ant. Ants are very famously cooperative, participatory, but it's also, there's a conception here that ants don't steal even a grain from each other. They're so participatory and communal. And then properly
from ants from a different nest, different, I don't know what you call it, but.
So they don't steal from each other. They always steal from the other guys. And certainly if you're having a picnic, they'll steal from you, but not from each other, right? No animal is perfect. No creature is perfect, but there are still admirable qualities that we're elevating here. And then the rooster apparently appeases the hen and then mates with it, meaning that there is a respect for the other. There is a not just rushing into things, right? That's what we're talking about. We're getting a little R-rated, but yeah, please.
So to get maybe even a little more R-rated, maybe what that refers to is the mating rituals that many birds have.
Correct. Yes.
And it's interesting that that's interpreted as respect.
For me, I'm interpreting as respect, but go ahead.
Whether that's projecting or not,
Sure,
could be discussed. But I think maybe what's interesting in general is that even though we have this idea in the Torah of human beings kind of dominating the animal world.
Yes.
On the one hand, maybe to protect and
yes,
nurture it. On the other hand, maybe to use it or whatever.
Yes.
This seems to be looking at it from a different angle, which is what can we learn from
Yes.
the animal world? So
Good.
That's interesting.
Good. So I want to. David's bringing up a couple things in the book of Genesis. In chapter 1, you have the Kif Shuha, right? Subdue the earth. Human beings are sort of the apex of creation. It's humanity versus nature. We have to master the elements, the wild. Tame the wild around us, right? That's kind of our modus operandi. And then chapter 2, Shomra Ulovda, guard and protect the land, right? There's this counter model to the dominated, which is be good stewards of the environment, right? You have to till the soil and work the land, and this is a steward relationship. And this is definitely going in the sermon, by the way. This is something I've been thinking a lot about. And there's a rabbi, I think it's Rabbi Arthur Waskow, who says, chapter 1 of human, the reason that Kivchua, conquer it, is in chapter 1 of Genesis, is that was chapter 1 of our human history. Chapter 1 is first, you do it. If you have no technology, if you have no shelter, if you have you have to subdue nature in order to survive. But we're well past that point in our human history. Now we have turned the page literally to chapter 2 of Genesis, which is Shomra Ovda, guard and work the land. That we have to, it's not just about conquering anymore. We've done it, check. Now we've moved on to protect it, be good stewards. So it's not that they're contradictory. It's that one is speaking to chapter 1 of human history, and when the other is speaking to now, to today. Okay, I promised you a little writing exercise, and I want to honor that. So what I want us to do is take just a couple minutes, and I want us to, if you had to write your own little midrash of what we could learn from nature in the style of Rabbi Yochanan, I wanna what would you write? You know, you could choose one animal. You don't have to do a list. If you're feeling very creative, you can make a little list, but just jot out a couple things, or one or a couple things that, you know, if Torah hadn't been given, we could still learn this Torah value, X, from Y, from a creature or a natural organism. Okay, I'll just give us 2 minutes while I make myself a plate of salad.
Okay, to write in Hebrew.
You can write in Hebrew. Wow, this is so nice. That's okay. That's all right. Wow, I'm really blown away. This is. Yeah. Interesting. It's good for very topical. Take just a minute more. Okay, I'm stopping this just because I want to see everybody. Can we have a few volunteers who want to share what they wrote? No pressure to, but if you're interested. Please.
I probably talk too much, but here it comes. From the B's, industry, cooperation, division of labor. Individuals are important in themselves, but at their best when supporting and nurturing their community. Also defending it with their lives. Although one hopes it doesn't come to that.
Very nice.
When
Love it.
they're dead.
Right. Did you guys hear?
Yeah.
A little love song to the bees? Yes, please.
I have two. From dogs, don't be harsh on homosexual behavior.
Good, that's great.
And hide from predators.
Hide from predator. Okay, good. Yeah. Good. That's interesting. Thank you, Nelson. Is that, sorry, it's a little bit, is that Sheila? Go for it, Sheila.
Yeah. We learn patience from some of the animals, like a lion. It's precisely some of the wild ones who just lie in wait
Yeah, crouching like a
The
lion.
lion waits for his lioness. He's very protective of that. But he waits.
Good, I like that. Yeah, patience. Hey, yeah, we're gonna talk about trees too, and if you take it,
I
yeah.
did trees.
Good, okay, please, let's hear about trees.
I just said, it's very simple, changing seasons, especially now, Erev Rosh Hashanah. The leaves turning burnished gold, red, yellow, miracle.
Love it, love it.
You can come to my yard.
I have a few.
Yes, please, Helena.
Loyalty from the dogs. Even if you mistreat them, they are loyal to you.
Yes, welcome, come on in. Good to see you. Grab a plate, yeah.
The geese, they stay with one partner all their life,
Nice.
which definitely is not human being. Dolphins and whales,
Mhm.
they can communicate and they have capacity. I see all kind of things. We know much more now than we used to know.
Right,
And it's just we scratch the surface, so we don't know a lot about them yet.
right, there's so much we don't know, and with whales and dolphins, communication, right, sonar, using audio vibrations to communicate and sing, whale song.
Elephants are very smart,
Mhm.
and not only this, they are patient. They have to wait. I forgot how many months they have to wait to be pregnant, much longer than humans.
It's very long.
Very long. I forgot. It's
Eighteen months.
something really long.
So patience from elephants, and and I apologize for reading, I know it's not the most respectful thing
And
to do,
it's
but
community, because they take care. If somebody
Yes.
dies
Mhm.
during birth, somebody else, another elephant will take care of the orphan.
Very social.
yes, Rabbi Alex actually spoke about this in her sermon, but the elephants mourn their dead. That there was actually, there was a human being, and they bury their dead
Yeah.
and their memory, right? There was a human being that was sort of got indoctrinated into this elephant herd. And when I think it was a male, when he died, like even up to a year later, they came back to his spot. So yeah, it was unbelievable, right?
Very, very
So good. Kavod Emet, Chesed Shel Emet, right? These Jewish values of tending for the dead, caring for the dead. Ruth, was that your Jerry you had? Okay, we'll just do after Jerry one more. Okay, you guys, yeah.
I'm listening. I didn't want to.
Oh, you didn't want to share? Okay, Jerry.
I have one
Okay,
positive
yeah.
and one negative. The spider weaves its web and shows perseverance, and we make it the moment it's taken down.
Wait, the last part? Say the last.
And we'll remake it.
Oh, good.
Right, yeah.
Good perseverance, right? And artistry. Spiders spin this ornate web. I mean, it feels like, how did you make something so beautiful like that? It's so intricate. And then we clear it up, but then they'll just do it again, right?
The negative, it's interesting, I'm not sure how to interpret it. The snake who eats its prey while its prey is whole and alive.
Ah.
So I don't know what
your
your food is about life.
We could learn against something too. We should chew our.
It sounds like a virtue. It sounds like we should learn from it in a negative way.
Yes. There's some brutality in nature for sure. It's not all rainbows and butterflies.
I did the elephant from a different angle, and that's the fifth commandment, to honor your mother and father. And
Very
they follow the senior leaders.
Beautiful.
Very
Great.
territorial, yes.
Okay, love it. Please, Chad, and then we're gonna move on.
I was just gonna bring up migratory animals, and and Rabbi Alex talked about this in her sermon about the monarchs.
Yeah.
And how their mission crossed over generation and generation. And I heard recently too about these sand cranes that migrate, and there's a place, I think it's in Nebraska or something, where is a destination for them on their way south. And just how they arrive there and how they're organized, and weaker members of the flock get to fly sort of in the back so that the stronger members in front can grab for them, so that there's they achieve some sort of higher sense of purpose in their journey.
Wow, yeah, right. So this idea of like outliving your own individual life, right? This communal affiliation, where with this great migration that might outlive you, kind of like what Rabbi Alex was saying, wandering in the desert, right? 40 years and intergenerational pursuit, Lador Vador, right? That to actually think outside of your own individual life and think about the community. Okay, great. So I want us to keep plugging along with our texts. Now we're going to go into some Zohar, right? What I've sort of liked how the Midrash will still be the core of what we're learning, but then we could branch out to other texts. So I want us to go, the Zohar is a Hasidic text, mystical, Kabbalistic tradition, maybe from the 12th century. There's some dispute as to when it actually was written or compiled, but or who wrote it, right? But I want to give some context to what it's going to be commenting on. It's commenting on something out of Samuel when the Israelites are warring against the Plishtim, the Philistines, and the Plishtim, they steal the Ark of the Covenant because the Ark of the Covenant was sort of like they would have thought of it as our secret weapon in battle, right? One of the ways that God resides with us and fights for us was sort of symbolically represented in the presence of the Ark of the Covenant, which is this box that carries the tablets, right? The Ten Commandments. And the Philistines, the Plishtim, they steal it, thinking that they've got an edge over us now. And instead what happens is they become cursed with the plague, hemorrhoids and some terrible, awful stuff, right? So they don't want it anymore. They send it back. And the way they send it back is they load the Ark of the Covenant onto 2 cows. And they say, we want to really know if this curse is from God, from the God of the Hebrews. So we'll do a little test, a little science experiment. If the cows take the straight path, which is go back to the Israelites, we'll know that this happened from God. We're being punished for stealing the ark. Or if they go, any other way, then it's a coincidence. This isn't because of the Israelites. We're not being punished. And what happens? Straight path, right? Vaisharnu. The cows take the yashar, the straight path. But there's something interesting about the word vaisharnu or yashar. There's another Hebrew word that shir, song, to sing. So that's really the midrash that the Zohar is going to be making. So this really is midrashic, even though the Zohar is not midrash. They're employing midrashic moves, and that's why it's relevant to us. So can somebody read in the English? Please, yes. Thank you, Cheryl.
Rabbi Yossi began with the verse, a psalm, O sing to Hashem a new song.
Shiru Ladonai Shir Chadash in Hebrew.
Friends explained that this was said by cows, as it is written, and the cows took the straight way.
Vaisharna.
The word Vayasharna also means that they sang a new song. What new song? A psalm. Oh, sing to Hashem a new song.
Right, certainly a new song if it's coming from cows. It's a song we haven't heard before.
We should examine this verse carefully. Everything that the Holy Blessed One created in the world offers praises and songs to their Creator, either above or below.
That means either the creatures above or the creatures below, the fish or the birds, they all offer song.
If you thus say that the cows sang this song, it is assuredly so, for there is a deep secret here. When they carried the ark, they sang, but once the ark was taken from them, they again behaved like other cows in the world and did not sing.
So what so strikes me about this text, we were talking about this earlier. I think it was something that Jerry brought up, right? That we started with, if Torah had not been created, we would still learn much of what Torah aims to get us to understand through the natural world. But Jerry is saying, but would we even be able to know that without Torah? And I think this is where this text comes in to say, it is because of Torah that we as Jews should be able to tap into the song of the earth. That all of this wisdom and insight and beauty and song is happening all the time, but most people don't hear it. Most people don't see it. You walk through the woods and
They don't pay attention.
you don't pay, and it's nothing wrong with it. It's human. It's very human. You don't have that kind of mental capacity to tap into everything that's going on beneath the surface. Our senses can't capture it, but our soul should. And I think that's where Torah comes in, right? When the Ark of the Covenant, which is Torah here, right? The 10 Commandments, when that was placed onto the cows, all of a sudden we gained access to their song. We could hear that. It's almost like a spiritual magnifying glass, right? The Torah. Through it, or maybe better like headphones, because we're talking about, right? that you gain access to a deeper spiritual life that's happening in nature all the time. And Torah should help us to see that and not miss it. Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel. What does it mean to really hear everything that's going on? And the fact that, that's the question going back to Kif Shua versus Shomer Ala Odah. Is it that we're supposed to conquer nature? It's humanity versus the world and versus the animals. The animals, everything's just there for us to consume, to benefit from? Or is there something more? Right? Is it that, a cow is only so good as it gives me meat, milk, and tefillin? Or is a cow inherently possessed of a deep inner life and a song to sing to God? Yes.
So maybe I'm trying to relate this to something we learned some time ago from writings of Robert Gordis and what Jerry said, which is, maybe it's having the Torah and studying the Torah and trying to live by the Torah that allows us to, I think, as Gordis may have put it, raise the antenna to hear the signal.
Yeah, good.
And at the same time, kind of what Jerry was saying about the negative lesson that some of the animals might have.
Yeah.
Having the Torah helps you understand what's negative and what's positive. So you gave the example of geese being monogamous, you could use the ducks the other way around. They're not.
Right.
But don't be like a duck, be like a goose.
Right. There's also negative lessons to learn in nature, right? And nature can be absolutely brutal. I don't want to paint a naive picture that nature, right? It can be absolutely brutal, but there's lessons to learn in that too, right? We're not animals human beings are animals, but we're something different too, right? We're on a different day of creation. So while we certainly are more connected than we're not to the animal kingdom, we're also sort of this unique project. So what can we take away and what can we, positively and negatively from nature? And one of my friends, Rabbi Jonah Weiner, he was the one who initially taught me this text and put it in pairing with this one. I just want to give him credit. But let's move on to Sfat Emet. Sfat Emet is a Hasidic commentator from Poland. And he's got an interesting sort of like riff off of this piece from Zohar, actually commenting on Parshat Naso for a portion. But who wants to read this? Maybe somebody from Zoom? Any takers?
This point is explained by the story about the cows who sang while they carried the ark, as the ark gave them the knowledge to sing and chant, as it teaches in the Holy Zohar. This is also true of Levim, who also carry the ark. While it was carried on their shoulders, they raised their voices in song. So too, this is the case with all who serve God. They fill with radiance and joy in true service. For this reason, we have prayers and songs every day.
So this is kind of going in a slightly different direction, which is, it's not that Torah is necessarily a magnifying glass, which is the case that I was trying to make, that helps us tap into the song of nature. It's that Torah teaches you or inspires this song out of you, gave the animals gave the cows the knowledge to sing. So this is sort of a different take that, that the Levim, the Levites who were tasked with carrying the ark. So anybody who comes in contact with the ark, according to these texts, are imbued with song. It's sort of like a natural reaction that serving God, however we do that in our lives, should be joyous, right? It should like naturally cause us to sing out to our Creator.
Are we not also, the Bible is also picking out certain animals obviously that were in Israel and the Canaan and Egypt even for that matter. So they would not talk about a horse, for example.
Right.
that wasn't around then. And so they also pick and choose what they want.
Yes, certainly.
In other
Building a
words, they,
case.
I mean, as I don't know, somebody mentioned it before, that one of the animals says that you do not have to what do you call again, with gays and lesbians. In other words, God decided that. Why did he decide that? Why couldn't they get, you know, have sex together? And that was a value. I guess it was because of the idols, or the Greeks that had all that, and they were very promiscuous. But, you know, why? Who get asked that question?
Yeah, I want to make sure I understand your question. Are you saying why did they specifically choose the examples that they chose, given, and then you're
Yeah,
answering it, given the context?
Why did they choose certain values?
Oh.
Why do we have to be monogamous? Why do we? I mean, God chose it, but
No, it's a good question, right? So I took these all as sort of like givens, like these are all positive Jewish values, and that's why Rabbi Yochanan is elevating them. But we could go further in exploring this and say, well, let's pick apart each one and ask what the merits are and how do we arrive at that.
I never thought about it till now. When you know.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think I would want that to be a separate session because that would be a long conversation and a really interesting one. But I'm not sure we should continue to dive into that now.
No, it's just something
Right.
this is making me think about.
Good. Yeah, no, we should. And especially if in this world, if Torah hadn't been given, then yeah, we don't have a objective truth, so to speak. Sorry, yeah, an objective truth that's dictating what's right and wrong. So then we could say, well, is modesty really, what we should be aiming for? Is monogamy something we should be aiming for? We could pick apart everything.
Well, come to think of it, when you think about modesty in particular, the real ancients, the predecessors of what we call the humans, they weren't modest. They went around with loin cloths and whatnot, but of course in part that had to do with the weather.
Right. And I think that was relative modesty at the time, right? Like if you're going back to Adam and Eve with the fig leaves, right, covering themselves the second they realize after they eat from the fruit and they know that they're naked, they cover themselves with loincloths. So back then, even that could be seen as modesty or a reaction to embarrassment. But yes.
But there is something new here because he is equating song and prayer, which of course is the basis, I think, for Chassidut. And so I don't know that song was always considered the equivalent of prayer until Chassidism came up.
I love that. And I want to dive into that more because what does it mean to have a song to sing? And what does it mean to look at each other as if we all have a unique song to sing? And nature in our natural world is all being possessed of a song. And does song mean prayer? Does song mean something to offer? Does song mean inherent value? Well, how does it change the way we look at each other in the world? Yeah.
Song is simply something that is easier to remember than a poem or a prayer.
Right. There's a benefit to song because of its memorability. Good. Alina.
I look at it in different way. So any job you are doing, if you are doing it right, it brings joy to you because you know you did the best you can. So that's one way of looking at it.
Good. So I think Helena is divorcing it from being a specifically like divine service of God, like the Levites are doing, or the cows bearing the ark, and saying it's sort of whenever you do work that you enjoy, there's a whole genre of work songs, right? Of working songs and there's slave songs, right? That there's something in this. I know why the caged bird sings, right? There's something about work, whether it's work you enjoy or work you're forced to do that you don't enjoy, but you need to get through it, right? Song is sort of there at all parts of it as something that's healing or something that's a natural consequence or reaction.
Also that the word modest covers two different aspects. One is like Sheila said, bodily modesty, hiding certain organs
Mhm.
or certain activities, but it also means taking credit for what you've done.
Uh-huh.
And singing the song is a way of taking credit. You're singing the song because you've done something wonderful for God, and you're just sort of like publicly declaring it, not
You know-
being modest about it.
It is a great point you're making, and I cut a piece of this out, and you just brought it back in. And I cut it out because I thought it was too in the weeds. But they go into Shir Ladonai Shir Chadash, and they say, you know what's interesting about that psalm? Usually, a psalm will begin, particularly if King David, if it's attributed to King David, it'll say Le David Mizmor, or Le David, or it'll say it's from, or Mizmor Le David, right? A psalm of David. But here it doesn't. And they pick up on that and they say, why is this sing to God a new song attributeless? Why is it not attributed to anybody? And in the Zohar, they're saying that's because that's the song that God sings. It's a new song because it's a song that hasn't been sung since creation, and God will sing it again in the days of redemption. But the point here is that the song that the cows are singing is attributeless, as opposed to human beings that get very caught up in credit and they, we need the credit, we need it to be ours. And that's very much that's the whole problem, right? When it comes to Kif Shuha, conquer a nation. If you look at the world as ours, and this is all from me, and this is mine, I think one of the things Torah and certainly these texts are trying to challenge us is that whole notion of ownership. What if ownership is less important to us? That we don't see the world as what can it give me or this is mine, but as a collective, this is ours, and we're responsible for each other, and we're stewards of each other and of the world. All of a sudden, so that the song chosen to sing is the one that doesn't have an owner, an attribution. It's the song of the earth.
There also seems to me in what we're talking about, something about revelation. When we first read the first source, it wasn't immediately accessible to me. I had to think, well, what's modesty from the cat? Why do we learn that from a cat? And then, and as it goes forward, and then this whole idea that while the cows are carrying the ark, they're singing, but then when they don't have the ark, they go back like being like regular cows. We're not familiar with this behavior of cows. And this is a trope that's been used in pop culture multiple times. There's the famous Warner Brothers cartoon where the guy finds the frog.
They have to track.
Right. And he does hello, my baby, and puts on a top hat, and then he's trying to make money off of it. Every time he tries to present the frog, the frog is just a frog.
Right.
And so, and I sort of feel like for us, the cows are just the cows, but yet there's a revelation here about how when we're not looking, that they have these other characteristics.
Yes, thank you.
Other capabilities. There was a Far Side cartoon of cows in a field, and they're standing up on two legs and smoking cigarettes and having cocktails. And one of them yells "car," and as soon as the car goes by, they all go back down onto the.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. By the way, I so love the Warner Brothers frog analogy that first of all, I want to ask your permission because I told you I'm testing some of this I want to use some of this for the sermons coming up. It's only natural. This is the time of season we're in, so it's kind of, but if I use that, can I give you attribution? Not that you need it because you are so evolved beyond the need of ownership.
I only do that in this session. Otherwise, when I'm singing sanctuary, I'm copyrighted it.
Right. Funny. Yes.
Rabbi, I just have two things. To me, music is universal. Number one, it's one of the languages of the world that the whole world can sing it. And also, several years ago, I discovered that the Torah is actually a song. And not until I had my bat mitzvah here, b'nai mitzvah, that I realized the whole Torah, you have to learn tropes and different parts of it, that a lot of Judaism is built on that, on song. And I firmly believe song can be prayer, it can be thanksgiving, it can be gratitude. I think we sing for many, sadness, things like that. And then number two, number of years ago, I received as a birthday present, Perek Shira. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
So maybe you can tell a little bit about it. I know it's ancient. I think it's attributed to King David, but the book I have is gorgeously beautiful photos. And what it is, it's nature praising God. And, you know, there's a page where it shows beautiful wheat and there's a prayer. And then the bluebird, there's a prayer. So how does that tie in?
I think, well, you said a lot here. And number one being the revelation that Torah is a song, right? It's got trope markers. It's not supposed to just be read alone as individual. It's supposed to chant it in front. And that changes the meaning of it when you're chanting it and when it's a song. Gosh, this is really like this. There was a cantor who once taught me something that just totally floored me. And I apologize. It's sensitive in nature, and we could talk about anything here. But I just don't want to not do it justice by letting it be an afterthought. But it was Infertility Awareness Month or something. And she was speaking about infertility, which of course is all over our Torah and our matriarchs and patriarchs and trying to have kids. And she said the common phrase, tahar v'teled, right? Conceived and gave birth. But if you ever notice, there's one, I forget which section she was elevating, but there is an etnach or there is another trope marker that means pause between tahar and teled, between conceiving and giving birth. And it was, I never would, we just read through it. We don't look at the trope markers. But when she said that, oh my God, right? That the Torah is put, or the Masoretes, the Masoretic tradition that put the cantillation mark, the trope mark, put a pause between conceive and give birth to say that it doesn't always flow one to the other just like that, So it's a song, and what is unlocked when you see Torah as a song that's meant to be sung, right? And then Perek Shira, plug for Perek Shira, which I have not myself read yet, and I really want to. It's on the list. So you would be able to teach more about it than I could for sure. But
no,
but it is right. It's the idea that this whole nature thing isn't a hippy dippy. What are you doing talking about this in a Jewish space? Like this is very core to who we are as Jews. It's very much a part of our Jewish tradition, and we have a lot of literature, rabbinic and Torah, that deals with nature. Right there's a famous passage, a famous law when you siege an enemy town, you cannot cut down the fruit trees in the war. What are they that they're not combatants. They're not, you save the trees. And it even says like Adam hu etz hasadeh, or something like that human being is the tree. If you really want to, that there is this dichotomy that we are apart and separate from, and we are owners of, and we are masters of, isn't even necessarily a Jewish thought. In fact, it's the opposite, that we are one and the same. And our doom is if we fail to see that interconnectedness, which is going to bring us to the next text. This is from The Hidden Life of Trees. He was a forester. So again, I'm trying to be very careful not to sound, and I have nothing against hippies. I like hippies, but I don't want you to write me off as being too, LA hippie dippy.
Not yet.
I've seen hair, but Peter, well, I don't know how to say his last name, Molibin, he was a forester, and it was through his work with trees, cutting them down, that he somehow tapped into the song of nature, right? Through his contact, which was actually a more adversarial contact, or more, not adversarial, but industrial, more, we need to look at there are two sides here, right? We need nature. We do need to consume. We need to, right, and make a living. So I'm not disparaging that side of things, but he, through that work, actually got in touch with, oh my God, how majestic is this world, is nature, our trees. So who wants to read his finding from his book, please?
I will. The Hidden Life of Trees. Scientists investigating similar situations have discovered that assistance may either be delivered remotely by fungal networks around the root tips, which facilitate nutrient exchange between trees, or the roots themselves may be interconnected. It appears that nutrient exchange and helping neighbors in times of need is the rule. And this leads to the conclusion that forests are superorganisms with interconnections much like ant colonies. Every tree, therefore, is valuable to the community and worth keeping around for as long as possible. And that is why even sick individuals are supported and nourished until they recover.
So this was groundbreaking science when it was discovered, which is that trees are not independent, isolated creatures. They are very much social beings that actually communicate and interact with other trees, with the trees around them, and with other organisms. So there's this whole fungal network. Many trees have mushrooms, fungus, that are connected at the roots, and they have this like I'm no scientist, but they have this like they're able to communicate and transfer nutrients through these networks to other trees. So if a tree is infested by a predator, like some kind of a bug or a virus, if the tree is sick, it can actually send a message through this fungal networks or the interconnected root system underground to neighboring trees to say, put up your defenses because I've got something. and that
Put on your mask.
Put on your mask, right? And then they will. The trees can shift around nutrients or they have certain like defense mechanisms that they can then engage once they get that message. It goes underground. It also goes through the air. They can send chemicals through the air that also are picked up by neighboring trees and the leaves and all that. It was Sheila. Yeah, I saw your hand.
Yeah, it says, and this is why even sick individuals are supported and nourished until they recover.
Right.
The Eskimos do now I don't know whether it's just sick people. Old people are sent off on flows. My kid, this is a joke in my family, they don't like what I'm doing. He said, we're going to put you on a flow when you get old.
Right. Good. Well, that's the question, right? Because we were saying that nature can be brutal too. So you would expect survival of the fittest. If there is a sick tree that's just going to be hogging up valuable nutrients or competing for resources, and it's a sick tree, why don't we just let them go? And why don't we, first of all, we can feed off their nutrients or just cut off our exchange with them because they're no help to us. But in fact, they do the opposite. They care for their sick because every tree is valuable. Even if you take this from look, we can't really ascribe all this like advanced altruistic sense to trees, can we? Even if we took a colder approach and said it's all self-interest, it's self-interest because they actually want this tree to be supported because they're a community and they want all of its members are good and valuable to each of the other members, whether it's because they all are in this intricate web of transferring nutrients and defense and signals, or because of, even if it's out of self-interest, they protect even their sick and vulnerable.
I want to look at it a slightly different way, which is as an adaptive trait. So it probably depends on the trees and where they are to some degree. And certainly a lot of us have learned about Western aspens, which are often literally a single tree connected underground. And that's an adaptive trait. So I think that might be a way of looking at it rather than literally as whether it's self-interest or altruistic. It's just perhaps an adaptive trait, and one can learn from that also.
Right.
But the thing that I think is actually the most interesting, if this guy is a forester, is that in the course of his work, he took the time to even investigate the hypothesis or even have the hypothesis. You'd have to spend some time observing. And, a forester is typically worried about what's above ground, the wood that they're chopping down, that they're getting. So he's actually bothering to observe what's below ground after he's chopped it, maybe in part because if you're stewarding a forest properly, you're also replanting it. So you need to get underground. But whatever the reason is, that to me is fascinating about this paragraph because he's just not merely chopping down the tree.
Right. Exactly. And I think it's also going back to the cows with the ark being placed on them, right? Torah is a tree. Torah is a tree of life. Etz Chaim, right? But there's like this this like chain reaction, when you come into contact with it, there is an insight that is right, this sort of inspiration, this revelation, aha moment. So I think maybe just by virtue of being out in nature and choosing to look a little more carefully in coming into contact with these things, you just
I
are
think we
in
even
awe.
notice that ourselves, Debbie and I, when we're hiking as opposed to biking on the same trail that others are using for biking, sometimes the people who are biking just fly by.
Right.
They might say passing on your left to keep you from being run over, but other than that, they're really just concentrating on their movement.
Yeah.
And those of us who are hiking or walking are often noticing flowers, noticing animals, whatever it may be. So it's a different experience.
Nietzsche said this. He said that and I'm paraphrasing, but you never look at a tree. What you do is you look at a branch or something, and then your brain fills in the rest. Nobody takes the time to actually look at an entire tree. Well, when was the last time you looked at an entire tree? We don't have time. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but he says that's what you do. You fill in the rest with your imagination. Mm-hmm. So what does it mean to actually take the time to look at a tree and to appreciate the world around you? And how does that change the way you walk in it? A couple comments, and then we're going to finish off with the last text. Yeah.
So this kind of, to me, preaches the virtue of interdependence, how we're all interdependent. But yes, if you're a science fiction fan, you know what happens when it goes to the extreme. You get the Borg from Star Trek.
Good. Okay.
The Borg incorporates everything into one. And everything is absorbed into one entity, which of course is then bad.
Right.
We are Borg, resistance is futile, you will be absorbed.
Good, yes.
One thing to what David said about slowing down. I don't remember which merit badge for the Boy Scouts, but one of the requirements was to sit in a field for an hour and record everything that comes through.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't have to be in a field, but if you're going to a pond and you sit by a pond and sit there and observe nature, you'll see even more than if you were just slowly walking.
Yeah.
Which is partly Thoreau's point as well.
Right.
We're talking about ponds.
Yeah, I was thinking about Thoreau and also thinking about Torah, right? Torah is received by Midbar in the wilderness, right? It's not in the city. It takes a sort of, and 40 years, right? That's the real Boy Scout badge or Eagle Scout, right? An hour is fine. How about 40 years?
The other was the trees don't think about their relationship. Those relationships have developed through environmental changes over millennia. So the ones that are successful, the adaptations that are successful are the ones that exist, and the ones that were not successful disappear or are not as thriving.
Yeah.
So the trees don't think about their relationship with other trees, but the relationships exist because they've developed in nature over time.
Right. So I want to recommend this book to everybody, but to further explore that point, because I think he actually goes so far, this guy, Peter Woolabin, as to say that there may be some feelings going on here, because he talks about friendship, that when trees sort of link up with other trees, that there are sort of some reasons why they go for some and not other. Like there seems, this social thing is more complicated than I think we might be giving credit for. I think it may just be as cold terms of adaptation and however it is. And that might not be cold. That in its own way is beautiful. But he was also talking about a mother tree and its progeny, and how a baby tree actually grows very, very fast. And what the mother does, in this example he's giving, is it purposefully shaded the sun so that it wouldn't grow so fast, which if you have kids or have had kids, I think is a very paternal instinct, which is counterintuitive. You'd think more nutrients, but it actually was like, whoa, you're growing up too fast.
They grow faster in the shade.
Do they grow faster in the shade? Interesting. Okay, well, we have to have more conversation, but I want to respect our time. So I just want to end with this quote. It's just a beautiful, we don't even have to discuss it, but can somebody read, somebody on Zoom? Because I feel bad. I haven't heard from you in a little bit. Maybe somebody who hasn't read yet? From Zoom, ideally? Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Back in Brooklyn, a poet nurse to the Union dying writes, A leaf of grass is no less than the journey work of the stars. Jorgen never reads these words. Words strike him as a ruse. His maize and beans and squash, all growing things alone, disclose the wordless mind of God.
This is one of my favorite books. I think it was 2019 Pulitzer Prize winning, called The Overstory. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. I've never heard such beautiful prose about trees and the natural world. So I just want to thank everybody so much for joining us today. This was a really fruitful conversation and discussion, and I want to wish everybody an early, Shana Tova and Chag Sameach and
How about Shabbat Shalom?
Shabbat Shalom. Right? Let's go with what's in front of us.